Hello and ski to you all. Welcome into another edition of the PHNX D-Backs podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montier, occasionally known as your mayor of PHNX, and I'm very, very excited to be once again joined by this man because he does all the heavy lifting around here. It's the vice mayor himself, Thunderstick Jesse Friedman. Welcome back from Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Did you get any laws enacted? Anything anything for baseball? Maybe take care of them constantly tinkering with the new rules. Did you get a
I do
government
think that,
to look into it?
Yeah, I think most rule changes in Major League Baseball do originate in Washington, D.C. They're first discussed on the floor of the House, and then eventually they make their way over to Rob Manfred. No, it was a great trip. It was cold. I have to say it's really delightful to come home and it's like 77 degrees and sunny outside.
It's wonderful here. Yeah, but then you brought the cold weather with you and it's going to get cold again.
Yeah, apparently I did.
It's just following you everywhere.
Yeah, but there are worse things than, a lot of people would be happy to have it be like 60 degrees outside right now.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I feel like we can't complain too much about what's around the corner.
We need bad weather right now because when these people come into town to go to the Waste Management Open and do all of that stuff, right?
We don't want any of them to move here.
Exactly. We cannot have these people coming here and realizing how great the weather is because it's not that great. It'll be 120 before you know it, as Joc Pederson brought up. He said YOLO in regards to the 120 degrees.
I didn't get to be at the Joc presser live because I was walking around the Spy Museum and it was complicated.
But spies are mysterious, Jesse.
Yes,
it should be complicated.
That's fair. But I listened to it afterwards, and that was definitely my favorite part was Joc saying YOLO when it comes to the 120 degree weather in the summers. Yep. I mean, the man grew up I believe he's from Palo Alto, so he's from the Bay Area.
Yes.
He obviously spent a good chunk of his career with the Giants and then, the Dodgers. Like, he doesn't know what it's like he's never experienced like even 87 degrees in his life, Derek. I don't know how he's going to deal with 120, but I guess we'll find out.
You can try to prepare yourself, but you can't really prepare yourself.
No.
You know what I mean? It's you don't really get to experience it until it's real and until it's too late. Of course, we did talk about you leaving town, and that would in fact cause a press conference to happen.
Yes,
as it did.
Yeah.
You missed out on this, but we do have Mike Hazen's comments, which we haven't really discussed too much. And Mike Hazen he talked about the move and why they were interested in Joc and also some other things in regards to situational, at bats. I know a lot of people are concerned about Joc Pederson's splits. We talked about it on the show a little bit yesterday without you, but it does really feel like he at least sounds committed in his comments about working with Dave McKay and just, about wanting to contribute to this team. Like, he is willing to kind of work on some of his weaknesses that were magnified, I would say, last year. I felt like more than other seasons, but yeah, like his splits and obviously his inability to play defense or at least, the people assuming he's not going to play in the outfield for this team.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants clearly were not comfortable with Joc Pederson playing a whole lot of outfield for them. They kind of made that clear as the season wore on. It seemed like they were really trying to avoid having Joc play in the outfield as much as possible. And of course, Gabe Kapler in San Francisco was kind of the king of platoons, right? I mean, they just had platoons everywhere.
That's true.
And so, of course, Joc Pederson fit right into the system.
Oh, he was great.
They did really a heck of a job avoiding him facing lefties. I think it was like just about 90% of his plate appearances came against righties last year. So the Giants protected him very heavily. And it sounds like the Diamondbacks might do that, but Mike Hazen was kind of non-committal about that.
Well, this is what he had to say on the move of acquiring Joc Pederson.
Yet We still think there's some holes that we need to continue to build out bench wise, maybe looking at some of the right-handed options potentially at some point. We've talked about spending some attention on the bullpen, building out some depth there. So still working to continue to improve the roster any way we can. When the offseason's over, then we can sit back and assess that. But we're not. It's hard to say that we're done. We're not done in the sense that we've done a lot of the big stuff, but I still remain hopeful that there's more ways for us to improve this team.
Well, that was actually not on the move for Joc Pederson, but was on.
I mean, kind of.
It was on if the Arizona Diamondbacks and Mike Hazen are done with free agency, which we kind of felt like based on this move that they weren't. It didn't feel like any huge moves were imminent. It's not like they were going to have the budget to go out there and go after one of the top like Scott Boras clients available or anything like that.
Sure.
However, it did feel like this move did position them to still kind of address some of their positional needs, which is, still real. We're going to talk about the spring training, roster here in a little bit, but the Diamondbacks still need to kind of have a backup catcher, and their options right now aren't, like there's going to be some competition, but there could be some better options potentially out there still.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the Diamondbacks are necessarily done, but I think there's also a chance that they are done in terms of at least the significant moves. We might still see some
Sure.
minor league contracts or some additions to the list of spring training invites that we'll get to here a little bit later in the show. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Diamondbacks do here. Our initial reaction to this was very much that if you're getting Joc Pederson, then you probably have something else that you're at least hoping to do to kind of balance things out against lefties. You don't really want Joc Pederson in that spot against lefties. But yeah, it sounds like the Diamondbacks are maybe a little bit more open to having him face left-handed pitching. At least Joc Pederson certainly, as you said earlier, wants that opportunity. And it sounds like the Diamondbacks are potentially going to give him that opportunity. Do we have that video? Do we have Mike Hazen on lefties? Okay.
Yeah, we haven't really made any final determinations on that stuff yet. I know two of the things that we talked to Joc about was Joc wants to, prove to us that he can play in the outfield and face some lefties. And, we're going to see how he does. I mean, this is a competition in every way, shape, and form in terms of us seeing where we're best suited, and we'll deploy Tori. I'm sure Tori is going to deploy the roster as it needs to be deployed. But I'm interested to see what those competitive thoughts will turn themselves into coming into camp. I know he's primarily DH'd in the last little bit here. So we'll see where all that takes. We obviously have a very competitive roster in terms of what could happen from playing time standpoint. I think if it didn't go that way and we were fitting at bats in for righties, I think, depending on who the backup catcher is, Moreno could potentially see some time there, Rivera, as we're currently constituted, and then there's still potential opportunity externally too.
Jesse kind of hates the idea that everybody wants to just throw Moreno in at DH at times and then expect like the production, because obviously with the options at least they have right now, right?
I don't hate the Diamondbacks using Gabby Moreno in that spot. I think that makes perfect sense.
Right.
It's really an asset that the designated hitter came to the National League because if your catcher is a pretty good hitter, especially against lefties, you can keep your catcher in there, in the lineup in situations where you might not previously, because you obviously need your catcher to get some days off. My criticism is that, yes, if Gabby Moreno steps into the DH slot, that's great, but that means that Tucker Barnhart or Jose Herrera or a pretty light hitting catcher is stepping in the catching spot in his place. So in that sense, Gabby Moreno is not really a solution in the DH slot necessarily. But it does make sense for the D-backs to use him there some. I just don't really view that as being like, of course, Gabby Moreno can be there.
Yeah.
Your problem is solved. I just don't see it that way.
But the way he can be there is they are going to need to give him time off. And that's the reason why, like addressing the backup catcher role, they have plenty of options potentially, but it would be nice for them to have a backup catcher that maybe did have a little bit more offense to offer and things like that. And it remains to be seen. That's no knock at any of these guys that could potentially be the backup. But you and I discussed Gabby's going to need 30 to 40 games potentially off. And that's a significant amount of time off. He probably won't DH in all of those games, but that would give you the option to have him available if you strategically place it around, maybe potential left-handed starts by an opposing starting pitcher, have him off that day, but then have him DHing, right? There are options there. It's just like you said, you are going to have that drop off in production from that catcher position if one of those other guys is in there in lieu of him. So it's almost like you're putting one of those guys in at DH in a way, right? Like,
yeah,
then essentially you're having like Tucker Barnhart DH or whatever, right? But
which is not an ideal outcome necessarily. Right. But yeah, there is definitely something to be said for Gabby being able to be in that DH spot from time to time. The man hit like 352, I think it is, against lefties last year. Yeah. He's not like if Gabby Moreno is healthy, in my mind, there really never should be a day where the opposing team has a lefty starter on the mound and Gabby isn't in the lineup either as the DH or as the catcher. So the DH slot allows you to do that. That'll take some of the DH opportunities, but it still feels like there could be another move for the Diamondbacks to make here.
Chris in the chat says my fit is fire. Chris, you're not ready for this. But
what are you wearing? What?
Wham!
Yeah, the shoes always.
The shoes really bring it all together. Every time I wear this, you criticize it, and then I tell you what it is, and then you feel very bad afterwards. But it is, of course, every month on this show, as you know, is Black History Month, not just 1 month a year. Every month on this show is Women's History Month, and every month on this show is Black Women's History Month. But this particular hoodie I'm wearing is for Our Heroes Rock, which is a cartoon series similar to Schoolhouse Rock, done by a couple of friends of mine. And they told the story of Ruby Bridges. That actually drops today on YouTube, and it's a great little cartoon telling the story of a very important person in Black history. And that's kind of was their plan here, is to have some of these stories told so that we make sure to keep history correct, especially here in Arizona. I won't get to that. But anyway.
I wasn't saying, for the record, I thought it looked bad. I was just like, what are you?
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
You can't look at it and not be like,
it's beautiful.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Which is the way it goes for most things you wear.
Yeah,
so.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Gabriel Ferrer says February 1st and the reigning Cy Young is still unsigned. Yep, because Scott Boras.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun offseason, hasn't it?
And speaking of the offseason, we did ask you guys to grade the offseason of the Arizona Diamondbacks before the Joc Pederson move. And the results were pretty good. The 39.7% of you gave it an A, 55.9% of you gave it a B, 4.1% gave it a C, and 0% gave it a D or an F. But then we asked you to grade the offseason after the Joc signing on Twitter. And this is the results. Things moved in the opposite direction a little bit.
Eric.
Things moved in the opposite direction. Now 31.5% of you gave it an A. It's 54% gave it a B. We have 12.7% with a C. And then 1.8% of you changed the entire view on things here and just gave it a D or an F. All now, because of Joc.
To be fair, this isn't the most
scientific approach.
Yeah,
we didn't re-poll the same people.
Yeah,
we polled the same
people. The first poll was part of our Diamondbacks fan survey, which many of you filled out on Google Forms. The second one was just a Twitter poll question, which actually got almost 2,000 votes. We got like 3 times as many votes on that one as we did the initial survey. But the results did get worse. Part of me blames that on Twitter just being a very negative place in general.
Place. We know that.
Of course, you were going to get some D's and F's. Of course, there's going to be an uptick in C votes. I don't really understand how you can give the Diamondbacks a C, honestly. I understand there was some discourse happening in the comments section between whether it's an A or a B.
Sure.
I know Joc Pederson was not the prize necessarily of the DH crop that the Diamondbacks were reportedly interested in. I understand that, that felt like maybe not exactly who Diamondbacks were hoping to get. There was obviously a lot of talk around JD Martinez and Jorge Soler.
But there's an alternate reality where we paid JD Martinez 2 years, $40 million, and maybe the results of that don't end up being as good or at least as thrifty.
Diamondbacks fans don't like JD Martinez in their minds is the
what, Jesse? Say it. I will attack you right now.
He is perfection.
He is perfection. Yes. What? Is he not? Are you suggesting he's not? Because I will fight you.
You're the one
on
who
your
just
first day
said that
back.
the Diamondbacks give him 2 years and $40 million.
Well, yeah, because he's worth it. He's worth every
regret
dime of it because
but
he's
yes,
gorgeous.
All that to say, I think A or B, I understand the debate there. C just seems outrageous to me. I mean, the Diamondbacks really shot near the top of the starting pitching market in getting Eduardo Rodriguez. They made a solid acquisition at third base, I think, in getting Eugenio Suarez.
They addressed
Lourdes
all their
Gurriel
weaknesses.
is back. Joc Pederson. The DH slot is much better.
Yeah.
A C is just clearly too low in my mind.
It's absolutely too low. And I mean, Mike Hazen did talk about the move. We alluded to it earlier, but here's what he had to say about Joc Pederson and how he can add to this team and improve, the roster that they had from last year.
One, I've always appreciated the energy and competitiveness and the hit ability from across the field. I mean, it seems like he's worn us out. He's been in the division for so long. We've seen him all the time. It's good to have him on our side. From a roster construction standpoint, I think, bringing Lourdes back and Eugenio kind of filling in a lot of that right-handed. The middle part of our lineup was getting very, very, very right-handed, and I know there's, he does an incredible job of hitting righties, and felt like the division was going to stack up pretty right-handed dominant. I know there's still some lefties out there that could change that complexion a little bit, but for the most part, we felt like this was going to be a good fit in the middle. Keep Corbin and Cattell where they need to be. Keep Alec and Perdomo where they need to be. And thought this was just a good fit for us.
And I think ultimately he's going to be a good fit for this team. I think, again, when we talk about last year's team versus, the additions that they've made, I can't see how you can't feel like the roster is improved. But as we talked about earlier, they might not be done. We do know that the free agency market might be a little slim now for what they're looking for, especially at catcher. There's still an option or two out there, but
you want Gary Sanchez.
I just want Gary Sanchez. That's it. I want Gary Sanchez. Why would you even bring his name up if you didn't want to upset me? Because we're not going to get Gary Sanchez. However, the Houston Astros might be a good fit for a trade partner, potentially, right? They're looking for a left-handed outfielder, and we've been stockpiling those for years. We have plenty of those, Jesse. So maybe the D-backs could maybe make a trade here.
Yeah, I actually have a bot set up on my computer that just searches for reports of teams looking for left-handed hitting outfielders.
He does. It's kind of crazy.
Because it's like, oh my gosh, the team I cover is surely interested, right?
He gets a Google alert and he screams about it.
Yeah,
he's like, we got another one.
There has to be a fit here. And Dana Brown, the Astros general manager, this was about a week ago, he said if we could somehow get a left-handed bat, preferably an outfielder with some speed. I mean, come on, Derek.
Can I offer you Jake McCarthy?
It just makes sense on paper. Granted, this is
Can I offer you a Dominic Fletcher?
Dominic Fletcher, less so on the speed side, but still a solid defender at all three positions, and certainly left-handed as well. I don't know if this is still a thing, but I wanted to at least bring it up. The Astros did acquire minor league outfielder Trey Cabbage in a trade with the Angels on Wednesday. Fantastic baseball name, by the way.
Trey Cabbage. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's
great. Awesome. That sounds like some sort of cool name you'd give someone's hair or something, like Trey Cabbage. I don't know.
So Cabbage does kind of fit the description here. So I think it's possible that the Astros already kind of satisfied the need that they had in this area.
Sure.
Cabbage has barely played in the majors. He's not as established as a Jake McCarthy or even a Dominic Fletcher. I think in some ways, I think there are more questions with Trey Cabbage. Dominic Fletcher, I think, is a more valuable player. So maybe there's a world in which the Astros want to shoot a little bit higher than that, and they're still interested in pulling the trigger on something like this. And Jake McCarthy or potentially Dominic Fletcher could make some sense.
He gave up way too much in this quote, Jesse. He said that type of package will pounce on it. Are you kidding me? Like, you don't go to a car dealership with that kind of attitude. You're going to be fleeced. I mean, I feel this man is putting himself out there for Mike Hazen to absolutely fleece him. Mike Hazen loves to fleece other GMs of their prospects. But what would the Diamondbacks potentially get in return, or what would they want in return at this point? I mean, we do know that, of course, talked about some of their needs. We did speak yesterday about the bullpen. Jordan was a little surprised that the Diamondbacks haven't done anything to improve their bullpen.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be something that Mike Hazen has brought up a few times in the past.
Yeah, and I think that's what would make the most sense. Like if you're the Diamondbacks and you're trying to make a trade, and we've talked a number of times on this show about how a trade might make some sense. The D-backs still have more depth pieces, in my opinion, than they can really make use of.
Yeah.
So if you could find a trade partner, I think it could still make sense. And you'd probably be looking for relief pitching. At least that would be one of the things at the top of the list for sure. Yeah. The tricky thing with the Astros is, I mean, the back end of their bullpen is really excellent. They have Josh Hader, of course, whom they just signed. Ryan Presley, who's been their closer for a while, is still there. Brian Abreu, one of the best relievers in the game, still in his mid-20s. So their back end is really good. Beyond that, I don't think they're going to trade any of those guys for Jake McCarthy. Beyond that, I'm not sure if I really see a reliever impactful enough for the Diamondbacks to want to pull the trigger there. Rafael Montero might have made some sense. He was someone we talked about last year as a free agent target for the Diamondbacks, but he had a pretty brutal first season with the Astros. His ERA was around 5. The peripherals weren't great either. The Astros would have to eat a lot of money in order to make that trade, and I'm not sure the D-backs even want Rafael Montero at this point, now that he's 33 years old and coming off a pretty rough season. So yeah, I think it's a dead end, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't really see an ideal relief pitcher. Jake Myers is interesting. He's a right-handed hitting outfielder, kind of like an Alec Thomas type, who's a really, really good defender, but not great against same-handed pitching. Jake Myers has done pretty well against lefties, but not so against righties. I mean, on paper, that kind of makes sense. Like the Astros want a lefty, the D-backs could use a right-handed hitting outfielder, but I'm not sure if the Astros would want to do that. They probably want to add a left-handed hitting outfielder, not like trade one of their existing outfielders for one. So yeah, I think it's most likely a dead end. But again, I have this bot on my computer, Derek, and it went off the other day, and I just had to talk about it.
I appreciate that. I appreciate your due diligence in trying to figure out where we can send these left-handed outfielders. So, but of course, we'll get to see all of these guys. We're very excited to see all these guys in spring training. We'll talk about that roster that just came out today. We do thank you guys for being here right now on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to do so now. Sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss whenever we go live. Leave us a little thumbs up. We always appreciate you doing that. If you're listening on the audio podcasting side, make sure to subscribe to us over there. Leave us a review. We always appreciate those 5-star reviews. And of course, we appreciate you listeners as well. We also appreciate Illegal Pete's, which is a great place for you to fill up. And of course, the weather was nice until Jesse ruined it, but it'll be nice again here very soon, especially with spring training and all of these amazing events coming and happening soon. So make sure you stop in an Illegal Pete's. It's your go-to spot for all these wonderful things, including the strongest margaritas in Arizona, irresistible, mouth-watering food that will fill all of your heart's desire and more. So ring in the new year with Illegal Pete's weekly deals. Kick the Monday blues with $3 margaritas all day. So ease your way back into the week with $2 tacos every Tuesday. If you work in healthcare education, you can take your team to lunch at Illegal Pete's every Tuesday and enjoy buy one, get one free entrees. And don't forget to unwind after a long day at their happy hour, 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. every single day. Illegal Pete's, your go-to spot for burritos, buddies, and beers.
I'm a little concerned about Damon because I don't think they have Illegal Pete's in Mobile, Alabama. And I don't know how he's going to deal with that.
And so. wasn't Jed Fish also there? That's a recipe for disaster. That's a recipe for disaster. I'm saying it right now. That's a terrible idea. Damon's going to be very cranky. And then Jed Fish is in the same vicinity as him. I don't like that at all. But hopefully, I mean, I'm guessing he probably doesn't have his OGs either, which is probably a problem. By the way, I was shamed by Elise yesterday for my pronunciation of the word perforated. So I've been saying it wrong at times on this show, Jesse. And again, I tried to scold them the way I scold you about it being a hate crime because English is my second language. It didn't work, though. They didn't care about that. But OG's has launched 2 new products, one made with live rosin and one with their Rick Simpson oil, which I talked to you about before. It's amazing effect. You can get their OG's Naturals or their Big OG's now. The Big OGs is perforated into 10 slices, very easy to break apart and share each slice 10 milligrams. Or if you're bold, you can go for the whole thing, as I do. You can also check out their OG's Natural, which are vegan gummies made with live rosin, available in a sweet clementine flavor. So regardless of what you're into, OG's Brands has something for you, whether it's their minis, their sleep edition gummies, their mix bag, and so much more. So to learn more about OG's gummies and where you can find them, head on over to ogsbrands.com.
Gabriel makes an interesting point. It'll probably be Toronto again. They're still too right-handed. I mean, I do think the Blue Jays are still too right-handed.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that idea.
They apparently were interested in Joc Pederson before the Diamondbacks.
They were
able to get him. I don't know if they're really looking for a Jake McCarthy type, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bot hasn't come up with anything about the Blue Jays yet. But
you keep at it. But the spring training roster was announced, and we do know a bit more about obviously who we're going to see based on the 26-man roster. But now we know who we're going to see that are non-roster invitees, and there's some very fun prospects to see from the Diamondbacks organization that we haven't had a chance to see much in person. So it'll be a great opportunity to come out, watch some great spring training games. Here's that list of the non-roster invitees.
Yeah. It's a lot of players, man. What, 40 plus 26, 66? I think I can still do math.
I don't know. Don't ask me to check your math. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah, there are a lot of names here that we certainly expected to see. It's not like you see the list of spring training invitees, of around 70 guys, and you're like, oh my gosh, all 70 of these are shocking or anything like that. But there are, usually a few guys that are interesting that either are on the list or maybe interesting because they aren't on the list. And prospects is certainly kind of where we start with that conversation. Yu-Min Lin, Ivan Melendez, AJ Vukovich, Christian Robinson, all noteworthy prospects who are on this list for the Diamondbacks. I guess Yu-Min Lin is probably the headliner there for Diamondbacks fans who haven't gotten a chance to see him pitch in person yet.
I'm excited to see him pitch. I really am, because I've heard a lot about him, and I feel like they're, as far as the Diamondbacks prospects go for pitching, he is, even if he's not ranked the top prospect, he is has the most buzz about him. I think that fans know who he is. They've heard about his 26 different pitches he throws and everything like that. It's an arsenal. It's an arsenal, folks. But it's going to be very cool to see him in camp along with some of these other guys. I can't wait to see the Hispanic Titanic smashing up at Salt River Fields. But Christian Robinson, that's a very interesting, name that we have talked about for quite a while. We do know the Diamondbacks designated him for assignment, and he came back or stayed in the organization. So again, just hopefully another opportunity for him to get some chances or to get some eyes on him.
Yeah, I don't think that any of those Diamondbacks prospects we named really have a great chance to make the team, honestly. Right. I think they're all four of those guys are probably still a little ways away, Christian Robinson included in that list for sure. But there are still some intriguing tools with Christian Robinson for sure. I think some people have kind of moved on from him as a prospect in some ways. He's, considerably older now than he was a few years ago when he was a big name prospect. There's still a lot of swing and miss there, which was an issue back in the day and continues to be a concern now for sure. But at the same time, he still has legitimate speed and legitimate power. And I think could probably hold his own in a corner outfield spot. And when you have those elements, it's at least enough to put you on the radar as a prospect that we should be paying some attention to. And D-backs fans have been, dreaming about what Christian Robinson can be for about 5 years at this point. I think for fans of this team, it's fun to have him in camp for sure.
When I look at this list, I think of it's either young guys, like you said, that are still a little ways off. There's a great opportunity for them to be seen by the coaching staff at a major league level. There's also just a great opportunity for them to be in camp, to learn, to be coached and to experience, spring training up here. So I get that. I also get the list of guys there that are right there on the bubble of potentially making this team, like Kevin Newman. Brandon Hughes is one of those guys. Rudy brought him up in the chat. He said Brandon Hughes, I think, has a chance to make this bullpen, and we'll talk about him. But the name that sticks out to me there is Humberto Castellanos, which
Yeah.
I am a big fan of. And when you talk about like Christian Robinson kind of being a guy that we've moved on from at least a little bit, that is a pitcher who I felt like when I saw him as a non-roster invitee, I almost asked like, what is he doing here? Like he doesn't really fit the mold of either of those things, of either a guy close to making the roster or like, a minor league prospect, but he still is only 25 years old. He had Tommy John surgery and missed all of 2023. So it's easy to kind of forget about him as an option. But this man was at one time a pretty decent starting pitcher for the Diamondbacks at a major league level.
Yeah. Kind of functioned in, that up and down sort of a role, swingman type who can give you some innings. The most noteworthy thing about Humberto Castellanos in my mind is that he has 7 career plate appearances as a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and he went 3 for 6 with 1 home run and 5 RBI. So unfortunately, the DH is here.
Or is here, the
ruining everything.
Well, maybe he can DH too. Maybe
maybe Castellanos.
He's their answer to platoon with Joc Pederson.
Hey man, he only has to hit lefties, right? I think I'm not sure exactly what this looks like for Humberto Castellanos. He does have a minor league option remaining, so I guess he's in camp, and if he doesn't make the team, the D-backs could send him down as kind of a depth option. He did pitch in the Mexican Winter League this offseason, so 30 2/3 innings there, according to Baseball Reference. He had a 5.58 ERA and a 1.73 WHIP, so not exactly great numbers, but working his way back from Tommy John surgery, and certainly a familiar name and a bit of a blast from the past.
Going back to Brandon Hughes, that is a guy who pitched with the Cubs for the last 2 seasons. Vastly had pretty different seasons going from 2022 to 2023. Obviously, the sample size was much bigger in 22. He had a 3.12 ERA and 57 2/3 innings pitched, 1.09 WHIP, 4.64 FIP, and 1.7 home runs per 9. 2023 results not great. Not nearly as many innings pitched, 13.2 innings pitched, a 7.24 ERA, 1.61 WHIP, nearly an identical FIP at 4.65, and then 1.3 home runs per 9. So this is a guy who, obviously struggled there last season, but has shown that he's capable of giving you some innings and being a pretty solid relief option.
Yeah, Brandon Hughes was non-tendered by the Cubs a few months ago. There are a lot of players on this list who were brought in on minor league deals that we'd already heard about. Brandon Hughes is, I think, the one guy on the list who we had not heard about. So this is kind of news for us today that the Diamondbacks have signed Brandon Hughes to presumably a minor league deal with an invite to spring training.
Yeah.
And he didn't pitch a lot in the majors in 2023. He had some complicated knee surgery about halfway through the season. He had an IL stint with knee inflammation earlier in the offseason, spent like the minimum 15 days on the IL, came back, and then I guess the same issue flared up again. He wound up having season-ending surgery, and as you said, only 13 2/3 innings. I don't fully buy into Brandon Hughes being the pitcher that he was in 2022 on the surface. The 3.12 ERA, the 1.09 WHIP.
Yeah. No, the FIP kind of tells the story there. I kind of feel like of those 2 seasons, right? Like he
gives up a lot of home runs, and that's I think that's the thing probably keeping him from really being a consistent like 3 ERA reliever year to year. But totally could be a guy who could come in and potentially even make the team. D-backs have a few options. From the left-handed side, right? We've talked about Kyle Nelson, Andrew Saalfrank, and Joe Mantiply.
Yeah.
Maybe the D-backs have to pick 2 out of those 3. There are some other options there for them as well. Brandon Hughes being one of them.
Elise said this is a possibly intriguing invite because our left-handed bullpen depth chart is not super strong.
Yeah,
and we've talked about that as far as the options go. There's still some wait and see aspect to the success that some of the guys had late in the season too. I don't know why. I'm a bit more convinced about Ryan Thompson than I am about Andrew Saalfrank, but
sure,
they were just too good to believe that they're going to continue to be that good for this team. And obviously, I mean, that's just some of the relief options. But I believe strongly in Paul Sewald. I believe strongly in Kevin Ginkel. So I feel like with that, kind of that in place, you have the ability to maybe have some more moving parts in the bullpen. We also know, and I know you spoke to him, Corbin Martin coming back as an option for this team. So he was a guy that part of that, Zach Greinke trade that could potentially be the one bright spot, I guess. I mean, we got Paul Sewald kind of because of that, but I don't want to get all into that. But spring training, great time to come see these guys. I mean that. Like, if you live here and you let spring training go by without coming and seeing some of these young guys play, you're missing out. It's a great chance to see them live. And I don't know why, but there's just something about, like, when I remember the first time I saw Alec Thomas out at camp, and he was just gigantic compared to what I've seen, because every image of Alec Thomas I had seen of him was as a high school kid, so it's right. Sometimes you get to see these guys finally in person, and then it's.
I
remember
you giving me that report. I think that was when I was still in Washington.
I was like, oh my god, Alec Thomas is gigantic.
I went to spring camp today, and Alec Thomas is an enormous man. Which he's not.
But compared to the images of what you see of him as a high school kid, you're just like, sure. It's like he's the Hulk version of himself. So that's also fun.
There's also something about just seeing major league players up close and personal. They tend to look like they're considerably more ripped than the average person, generally speaking. So Alec Thomas's strength has never been an issue for him, for sure.
Never been an issue. Well, it is almost Super Bowl time, and now is a great time. If you have not checked out the BetMGM Sportsbook app, to do so. You can use our code of PHNX and you will get yourself $158 in bonus bets simply for signing up, using that code, and depositing $5 into your newly created account. And once you do, wagering that amount or more at a standard odds price, once you've placed a bet, you will receive $158 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your wager. So if you want some fun things to check out right now, BetMGM has these odds, Jesse, on what song you think Usher will play first during the Super Bowl halftime show. You can bet on this. And right now, I'm going to tell you this. The value option for plus 800, you can get, oh my God, OMG. That's a banger. That's an incredible song to start a set off with. And at plus 800, we were all talking about it in our work chat. It's a great value. It's just an incredible value. So, of course, you could get fun stuff like this. Of course, we ride and die with Blue Gatorade around here. So that's another fun thing you might be able to get down on. But if you haven't done so already, sign up for the BetMGM app. Use that bonus code of PHNX. Place your first sportsbook wager through the Sportsbook mobile application for at least $5. You will receive $158 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Check out the show notes for full details. And now listen to Damon talk about the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms. This promotional offer is not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. Are we back yet? All right, there we are.
There we are.
Hey, Alex in the comments has a great point. He says Brandon Hughes, 2 worst performances were at the end right before surgery. He had a 4.15 ERA before. That's very encouraging. Rudy says working with Strom, I think he'll have a good chance. Let's not forget, that's how we kind of broke down looking at Ryan Thompson. Speaking of tea time, that when you looked at his stats for the year, he really just had 2 bad games that ruined his ERA.
He wasn't really as bad with the Rays as
the numbers indicated, right?
Yeah, sure.
It was just a small sample size. He didn't have that many innings pitched, and again, 2 bad outings kind of ruined that for him. But
Brandon Hughes, I just want to point out, was an outfielder as of a few years ago.
Oh,
and he's listed as a switch hitter. So
there's a lot to offer.
Yeah, maybe
Oh my God, Tori's got to be drooling over that.
We can throw him in the mix for the DH slot against lefties.
We got to figure it out.
Humberto Castellanos.
We don't need any more free agents. We're good. We are good. Also, again, if you want to make some money, or making money is good, but the better part is taking care of your money. And that's what you got to do. Desert Financial Credit Union will help you do that. For more than 84 years, Desert Financial has been Arizona's largest, most trusted credit union. And they are dedicated to creating exceptional experiences by giving back to the community and providing financial solutions that make your life better. Make sure you bank with a financial institution as your best interests in mind. Not everybody does, and I can tell you that from experience. Desert Financial did get me started on my home ownership journey, though, and they can get you started on yours as well. You can look to Desert Financial for credit and savings accounts, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and so much more. When you open a free checking account online, you can get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200. Big shout out to our diehards, by the way. And yes, Elizabeth, Ontario does suck. Thank you guys for being diehards. If you're not a diehard already, you can make sure to sign up today. Get all sorts of wonderful benefits, including this diehard content we're bringing you to the Discord. I'm going to make Jesse go in there and talk to you guys more this week. And then next week, we're doing a game show.
We have a written mailbag for the diehards coming next week as
Let's
well.
go. Let's
submit your questions.
Submit your questions now. You know, these are all the wonderful things that you can do as a diehard member. You also get a free t-shirt from the PHNXlocker.com. You get discounts to our events. So if you come into any of our takeover events, come into any of our especially our takeover events here, including the one out by the pool in July. It's a great time to sign up. Of course, you get all of this stuff. It pays for itself. You get discounts with our partners. So sign up today over at gophnx.com. Jesse, Corbin Carroll knows who was drafted ahead of him, and he has been keeping receipts. And I know that sometimes in life, pettiness can drive you to really remember things like which teams passed up on you in the draft and,
sure,
you know, all of these things. Of course, we are very thankful that all of these teams passed up on Corbin Carroll in the draft. We wouldn't have wanted this to go any other way. But apparently the other day, Corbin Carroll proved that his pettiness at least has driven him to remember every single player that was drafted before him. Do we have that?
I've got a pretty good idea. It's so it was Adley, and then Bobby, and then Andrew Vaughn.
Yep.
Blade, Riley Green, and then C.J. Abrams.
Yep.
6. Lodolo, Jung, Langoliers, Hunter Bishop.
Yep.
Here's where it gets dicey. Was it Manoah? Was it? Okay.
Yep.
And then Cavaco.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me know if you need hints.
I might need.
He's in the show.
Ooh, okay, in the show. Oh, of course, yeah, Stott. And
then one more.
And then Will Wilson.
That's.
I love it so much.
Do you keep receipts like this in your life, Derek?
Oh yeah, Jesse. I know every single person that interviewed for this job and didn't get it. I know every single one of those names, and I have remembered them, committed them to memory. No, that's not just a casual like, oh, let me see if I remember. No, he knows those names. He knows the order. He didn't need your help. He was just pretending like he needed your help. He knew that stretch
was
there
it
right
Alec
before his.
Manoah?
Which one was that? Was it Alec Manoah?
You know it's Alec Manoah.
He probably could have been like boom, 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 but he didn't. He was like, wait, that might come off.
He
a
did.
little.
Yeah, he didn't want to make it look like
too much.
He was like that level
See,
of like
Elizabeth get it.
Yes,
he was pretending to struggle towards the end. Yeah, it's kind of like where you like race someone in a foot race. You don't want to beat them by that much, so you slow up there at the end. You know, that kind of thing.
I do think it's interesting that Bryson Stott is. I mean, yeah, I don't know if he really needed that hint to get Bryson Stott,
no,
but
he just wanted them to say it.
Stott is of course the guy that the Diamondbacks just played the Phillies in the NLCS, and I remember Mike Hazen was specifically asked about Bryson Stott in a press conference in the NLCS because the Diamondbacks, they passed on. Well, they didn't pass on Bryson Stott; he wasn't available anymore. But he was asked about his assessment of Bryson Stott during the draft. And Mike said the Diamondbacks loved Bryson Stott. Yeah. They had Corbin a little bit higher, and things certainly worked out for them. But
sure
Bryson Stott is a good young player, one of the better players on that list for sure.
There's a lot of good young players on there, but there's a lot of teams in between maybe 3 and 13 that might have wished they would have drafted a little differently.
Some mistakes were made for sure, but that's kind of it's kind of the way it goes with every draft.
Yeah. Elizabeth says, like when an ex texts you, wait, who is this? I don't remember you. That's what he wanted to do to Bryson Stott. He was like, wait, who? Oh yeah, Stott. Also, sad news. Corbin Carroll didn't get the cover of MLB The Show 2024,
He did not.
which we kind of didn't really think was going to happen. But what I wanted to get your scathing hot take on Vladdy Jr. being on the cover. Now, I will say I've already heard some better options. Like someone was saying that it would have been cool to have like all the Blue Jays players that had famous dads like on the cover with like their dads like being in the background, fading away into like obscurity. I don't know what that point of that was, but that's kind of cool. But also just having him and his dad maybe on the cover, like what we talked about, like having Ken Griffey Jr. and Julio Rodriguez on a Mariners kind of theme cover. But what are your thoughts on Guerrero?
It's weird.
It's not a fan of the choice?
Well, it just feels like odd timing in that Vlad Guerrero Jr. was actually not very good in 2023. He's coming off not necessarily his worst season, but one of his worst seasons.
Yeah.
He's really only had 1 year where he was like everything that people expected him to be. In 2020, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had an OPS over 1,000. He hit 48 home runs. He was everything that the Blue Jays could have wanted and more. Mm-hmm. But outside of that one season, he's been kind of a good but not great player. Baseball Reference had him at 2 wins above replacement, 2 even for the 2023 season, which is less than a lot of players who played for the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2023.
He hates fun. He hates fun.
I think he's a very marketable player who at some point in his career, I think it made sense to put him on the MLB The Show cover.
He won the home run derby.
Yeah, I just don't.
First father-son that's why it would have been cool to have his dad on it too. First father-son duo to win, the home run derby trophy. I think that's kind of what it is sometimes, more about like there's these big splash moments that sometimes make a guy kind of, important in the baseball world. But then when you look at that, you take a look at some of the potential exciting young players that have made a splash in this league. I know everybody hated it, but I mean, even Ellie De La Cruz at times feels like at least a more exciting choice than Vladdy Jr., but I still like him. I still think he kind of fits the mold of what they're looking for, a cover athlete on MLB The Show.
They don't make the obvious choice, man. Like Ronald Acuna Jr. was just like,
he's right there.
Like it was so obvious.
He's right there, right? Yeah.
But they're probably going to wait until Ronald Acuna has like a down year when he's 32 and he's got like a 787 OPS and MLB The Show's like, now is the time. We've always been waiting for the moment to, give Ronald Acuna this opportunity.
Rudy brings up a great point. I'm more curious on how many players rejected being on the cover, and that's something we don't know, right? We don't know. I know that they are it is an honor, and I have a feeling that not a lot of guys are going to turn it down. But
I don't know why you would.
If you believe in the curse, Jesse, you turn that shit down. If you believe in curses, which a lot of baseball players do, you're going to stay as far away from that fucking cover as you humanly can. You talk about a bad year he had now. Wait until you see what happens to Vladdy Jr. this year.
Yeah, I guess this will be this we'll see what happens here. I mean,
it's a good of reason as any to keep the cover away from Corbin Carroll. Keep him away from our team. We got other business to handle. We got World Series got to return. Somebody compared us to I think it was Joc Pederson compared us to the Royals from the year that they missed, and then they were able to make it back and get to the mountaintop. Hopefully that's the path the Diamondbacks follow, because that would be very excited. And then once they do that, then you can put Corbin Carroll on the cover, and then we'll be okay with it.
There you go.
All right. Well, Jesse, I'm glad you're back, because again, I can't do this show with the Cespedes Family Barbecue Boys every day.
I'm still so angry about that. Jordan Schusterman is one of my favorite baseball podcasters in the universe, and he has been on our show twice, doing entire episodes.
Just a whole ass
on
episode.
Our show,
not a 10-minute spot, not 15 minutes. I just force him into being my co-host for the day, and he's so cool. He's down with it, and then he always asks, "Hey, where's Jesse?" He's familiar with your stuff. He likes you. He thinks you're great. Never connected. I don't know. It's because I do these things to hurt Jesse, and you know that. But
I'm gonna get Jake to fill in when you're
son
gone.
of a bitch, don't you dare.
We'll see how you
I
feel.
swear to
about
God,
that.
if I go on my cruise and I look and Jake is sitting here, I'm gonna be furious. But anyway, you can, in the meantime, follow all of the fun that we're having on Twitter. I am at Cap_Caveman with a K over there. This maniac is at Jesse N. Friedman. Of course, no Damon today. We got Kyle on the ones and twos. We are Kyle's kids today. Dad,
am I supposed to bark?
I don't know. Bark. Do whatever a kid would do. Of course, our show is at PHNX_DBacks, but all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We thank you guys so much for stopping by. We appreciate your time. We will see you tomorrow here at 1 p.m. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it is so much more fun when you keep our stars off the cover of that damn video game.
We all silly like the mayor.